Hi everyone. Today we're going to look at the sling load system on the CH-47 Chinook, the potential for the DCS module, and what you can currently lift in the game right now. Remember, all this information is freely available on the internet. The CH-47 Chinook has a useful load capacity of 10,886 kilograms. That's 24,000 pounds for our American friends, which is one of the factors that make it such a versatile aircraft. The Chinook has 3 hooks which are mounted on the aircraft. From a distance they may seem similar, but in fact there are 2 different types. The forward and the aft hooks, as seen here, are always fitted and attached to the underside of the aircraft. The centre hook, which is much larger in size and carrying capacity, is actually stowed in a compartment or bay between the cabin floor and the belly of the aircraft. This bay is accessible via 2 hatches, one inside the cabin for the crew to gain access to the centre hook, hopefully not falling into it at the same time. The lower hatch is extended out and back by means of a winding mechanism to allow the centre hook to swing down for use. When we look at the pre-order trailer, you can see the forward and aft hooks clearly. The centre hook is deployed, and we can also see that the lower door is extended and it enables us to look into the bay. The hooks are operated either by the rear crew using a remote cargo release or via a cargo release button, which is on both of the pilot's cyclic controls. The crew also have indications in the front that shows whether a hook, for example, has a load attached or it is in the process of opening. The other, perhaps more vital aspect is that they do have the rear crew who are watching the loading and unloading throughout and communicating what's going on to the pilots. It's this latter aspect that I'm wondering how the DCS version will work. In the Microsoft Flight Sim, the Miltech version, you have a polar display of where the cargo is in relation to your aircraft. This has got no audio, however. It also only currently uses a centre hook. The DCS Huey has got a similar external cargo indicator which you can select to see where it is, as in the aircraft, in relation to the cargo that you're picking up. For me, a Jester type rear crew guiding with audio commands, again similar to what they have on the Huey, would be ideal. The bonus with the F model Chinook is that it's got a digital automatic flight control system to assist the pilots fly the aircraft, and I'm sure a lot of players are going to notice a difference when the Chinook comes in compared to, for example, something like the Huey, which is very much kind of seat ear pants, trying to dance around, sort of keep it within the parameters, so the cargo, especially if you're hovering over the top of it, so that the cargo can get attached and you can lift off with it. Also, in the communication side of things, not forgetting the troops on the ground who are there to actually facilitate the loads that are being attached to the hooks and being on hand when the loads are being dropped off. One of the vital reasons you have to be so accurate with this element of flying is to ensure that they, the troops on the ground, can safely attach the loads to the underside of the helicopter, which is hovering only a few meters above their heads. If they can't manually hook a load on, the load's going nowhere. So if the space allows, there's always the option to land alongside the load and then kind of hook it up that way. Certainly that's an option that's available. The Chinook has got the ability to collect 3 different loads, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, and deposit each of these at a different site. You can see on this example here that I've done in the mission creator. Although they have to be carefully planned out, not just in respects of where you're going to drop the actual loads and who needs what, but actually in the order in which you're going to attach them onto the aircraft and release them as well, because what we don't want to do is overly kind of impacts the aircraft's centre of gravity such that we put the aircraft in a dangerous flight condition. This is also a consideration whereby if, for example, one of the loads breaks or something like that, when they were planning basically what's going to go on which hook, it's another kind of consideration that comes into that planning as well. They often, as in this US Army photo, use the forward and aft hooks together to lift loads such as a Humvee and its trailer. The first thing that they're doing is actually earthing the aircraft to the ground. This is using an item called a shepherd's crook, and this ensures that nobody is injured by the static electricity which is created during this activity. It might not necessarily be the static electricity that causes the injury. It might just be the fact that it's enough to kind of knock them off, and perhaps it's the fall that actually causes more of an injury. Then you can see how, for example, in this image here, the forward hook will be attached first, followed by the aft. Replicating these kind of activities and be able to see kind of troops moving around and things like that underneath will be good. Whether that will appear on the initial version, I don't know, but it's certainly something to aspire to, I think. Finally, should the aircraft develop serious problems, for example, if they're flying along, they've got loads hanging off each of the hooks and they lose an engine, there's a fire, something like that, they may need to drop everything, right? So they need all the performance that they can get. So the crew have got the option to basically just ditch everything in one go and just, pretty much kind of leave that cargo spread across the countryside. So in terms of what we can lift in the game already, for this we're going to go back to Port Stanley in the Falkland Islands, where I've set up something like, I think it's something like 16 Chinooks to collect various loads. We'll set them off whilst we go and look at the loads available. These can easily be selected in the mission editor under static objects, and then you select cargo, and there's a separate tick box so that you can essentially create them as a load that can be lifted. So here we have the boss with his large forklift, which I actually think is from the new add-on pack, which appeared with the latest updates. There's a few bits of kit. It looks pretty good. So anyway, our boss has single-handedly moved all of this cargo here just for us to see. So what have we got that we can currently lift in game? Well, there's the ammo boxes, and we actually saw these in the pre-order trailer. The static barrels, so for example fuel and oil. There's a container, and again we saw this in the pre-order trailer as well. There's something called an F-shaped barrier, a large ISO container, a small ISO container, an L118 light artillery piece, and we certainly saw this in the pre-order trailer. Some M117 bombs, an oil tank, some big pipes, small pipes, although when you look at them on the map they kind of look the same size. A tetrapod, some long trunks, and if you get them from small elephants, there's short trunks as well, along with a cuddly toy and the UH-1 cargo, aka a packed lunchbox. And again, we saw one of these in the pre-order trailer as well. But there's clearly countless other load options that they could add to the game. So being able to move, for example, tactical vehicles that you could drop off at some forward operating base, or or should I say pick them up from there and then deploy them out into the field so they can drive off and get going. That again would be pretty cool. So back to our cabs, who've been setting up on each of the cargo that I've set up on this plan, right? So for anyone who watched my previous video where this all went sideways, it's a real challenge to get the AI to work, right? Would you actually ever set them up like this in real life? I'd suggest probably not. The only reason I've done it this way is so that we're able to see aircraft lifting all the different types of cargo in a relatively kind of short area. I try to pretty much use the length of the runway, but even that, yeah, just wouldn't work, unfortunately. So let's have a look at the current AI CH-47D that's in the game and see what we can actually do with it then. So the first thing that you'll notice when we look closely underneath the aircraft, there's no hooks at all, right? So whilst the model is not bad, there's pretty much no detail underneath. There's just, you know, a couple of bits. There's like a single landing lamp and that's about it. That said, you can order it to carry out sling load operations, but it'll only do it from the center hook, which is, again, it's not really modeled at all. Rather, the rope, as they call it, in the UK they refer to these as strops. It comes out of the bottom of the aircraft to where it hooks onto the top of the cargo. So next, let's look how it actually hooks up then. So for the majority of these loads, they'll hover above, and then the invisible crew will set the load up, so the aircraft is unable to lift it. And yeah, it looks okay. There's also evidence of the aircraft landing next to the load and hooking up that way as well. As to why it does that, and for different loads, I'm not entirely sure for that, to be honest. Sometimes I've seen the AI models, sometimes they land so close they actually end up kind of damaging the aircraft. It's a bit strange, even though I've set them all to the ace level as well. And then, how they fly with the loads attached does vary. In some cases it's okay. In others, the load is swinging so far and so fast, it's literally like the load is, you see these ISO containers doing loops of the entire aircraft. Or there's a couple that are flying around playing conkers. I've seen one, certainly, which has been hovering next to another one, and the load has just been spun around. It literally smashed it into the aircraft next door. And then when it comes to dropping off, some of the loads are placed kind of quite well. Sometimes the aircraft sort of sits there trying to work out what's going on, and then other times, well, it pretty much literally kind of throws it across the landscape. And yeah, some sort of cargoes, for example, this kind of field gun here, yeah, nobody's kind of using that anytime soon, unless of course you're having some kind of war with Australia, that is. So I'll add this clip in just for the lulz, just to show how awesome the AI in the game can be. As I said before, yeah, it's certainly a bit of a challenge. So anyway, what do you think we'll be able to lift when the new Chinook module comes into the game then? They are promising a new logistics module. I know there's a bit of chat in the forums and things like that as to how complete that'll be when the game comes out. There's certainly evidence of various cargo types in the Eagle Dynamics videos that we've seen so far. So anyway, I'm looking forward to when we get to the infamous 2-week stage to see what we get next. Thanks for watching. Safe flying. Bye bye.